I gave people all the stuff they really needed. Social security checks, utility bills, TV guide.
I want a TV guidance counselor. TV guidance counselor. Staying up to watch all night, and everything's gonna be alright with my TV guidance counselor.
Hello and welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I am Ken Reed. As always, your TV Guidance Counselor. I am the Boston-based stand-up comedian. I guess I can still say that, even though I don't do as many gigs as I once did, who each and every week since February 14th, 2014, it's not 2024, has talked to an interesting person about work, life, their career, growing up, using a back issue of TV Guide magazine from my personal collection as the inspiration for our conversation. And this week, this is a big deal for me, this episode. My guest this week is the one and only Mike Watt. If you are unfamiliar with Mike Watt, I am happy to be the one who gets to introduce you to him. Mike is just an amazing guy, so salt of the earth, just a genuine and so incredibly talented guy. He was in the Minutemen, which is one of the seminal sort of West Coast punk bands of the early 80s. If you are unfamiliar, stop this recording right now and go buy, say, Double Nickels on the Dime or really anything. The theme to Jackass was a Minutemen song, if you've heard that. But really great band. Then was in Firehose, played with Porno for Pyros. He has had some just amazing solo stuff. He's easily one of the greatest bass players in rock history, but also a fascinating guy. He's a writer, insightful, and just a cool dude. And I've been a fan for such a long time. So I am very happy that I got a chance to speak with Mike. And I cannot thank him enough for taking the time to sit down and talk to me about old TV. He's on tour all the time. Definitely go see him. I put links in the show description here for his website so you can listen to his show. He does a radio show, Watt from Pedro. It's basically a podcast. Been doing it since like 2001. So yet again, an innovator. Also did some amazing cover songs with Ciccone Youth, which was Sonic Youth. He did a cover of Madonna's Burning Up. That's really fun. But just an awesome guy. Look up Mike Watt if you haven't already, by the time I've gushed about him for 10 minutes here. But he is so great, and I was very happy to get a chance to talk to him. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, the one, the only, Mike Watt.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Live via satellite from San Pedro, it had to be. Mike Watt, how are you, sir?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much for doing this. I've worked with you for a long time. Obviously big fan of all the stuff you've done. And so I thought it'd be fun to see what does Mike Watt watch on TV? And you picked this issue for a very, very specific reason. So this issue that we're looking at here is June 13th to the 19th, 1970. What was it special about this week?
Yeah, it was around this time I met D. Boon.
So you had moved from, was it Virginia? And then you moved to Pedro around this time?
No, before. I came in 67.
Okay, so you'd been there a bit.
I had been in a Navy housing across the street from the big boneyard. So my pop got orders in 1970 to go on another boat in Alameda, which is like East Bay.
Up by San Francisco, right? Yeah.
So 400 miles right north. So couldn't live in the Navy housing anymore. So, because my mom said, fuck this.
No way.
Yeah. And these new projects were being built next to the old projects. It was next to the biggest park in Pedro, Peck Park. And it's in between 6th grade and 7th grade. It's that summer for us. Because my birthday is at the end of the year, so that's when I turned 13. So I'm at 12 at this point, and so is he, and I'm 4 months older than him. He had moved there a few years before. He told me later, from Bakersfield. He was born in Napa. So none of us Minutemen was actually from Pedro.
You're all transplants.
JoJo's is Brocton, Massachusetts. We came there as boys, but I think I was 9.
Oh, he's from Brocton? I had no idea.
Rocky Martian.
My dad's from Brocton.
Okay. Well, Georgie's ma had strong accent. Georgie. Yeah.
Georgie, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's how it was like that, right? And she let us prac in the backyard. All the mas helped out a lot with Minutemen. I mean, T. Boone's ma we lost right graduating high school. But anyway, this 1970 summer is tricky because it's a sea change, definitely in my life. I mean, I've been in Pedro a couple of years and stuff, but didn't know any music people or stuff. I knew something about me. I mean, I knew a little more than he did in some ways. Like the only rock and roll band when I met him knew was Creed's.
Yeah.
Underwater Revival. So he didn't know about Cream or first gig we go and see is T-Rex. That's a couple of years after this. But we didn't know about clubs and stuff. It's after high school.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's none in Pedro. Like, what is it, about a half-hour drive up to L.A.?
It's about 30 miles to Hollywood. So, the traffic was a little calmer. So you figure that. Yeah, the freeway, right?
Yep.
And it's turned into and it's not just rush hour. It's like all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Now.
No rhyme or reason anymore.
There's hardly any gigs in Hollywood. I mean, that all changed. But we're talking okay, this is 70, so we're talking 50-something years. Okay. We ain't driving.
No.
But this is really intense because I didn't really watch that much TV. I was trying to remember in Navy housing. I remember Friday was in night. The prime time was earlier than maybe there was reruns. I remember it being 7:30, and then it moved to 8. But I was remembering when I first came to California, and that's when the Wild Wild West and Star Trek and Mission Impossible was all on a Friday.
Yeah.
But I didn't watch TV all the time. Also, no color TV. I didn't know my favorite TV show, but it was on like a public station, PBS, was The Prisoner. It was from England.
Yep.
And I didn't know I never saw it in color till I got the DVDs in the 90s.
Did that blow your mind?
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole thing about color TV was, I don't know. TV wasn't that big. There was only a few stations. For me, it was easy to get bored with and shit. I couldn't get into it that fucking much. Like you can tell by these my pick of the shows. I don't really, but there are things. And because of the fewer shows, I think more people had a more common connection. It wasn't as stratified. People talking about shows now, like the TV I watch now, it's got, of course, antenna so I can get stuff that's broadcast. But then, no cable. I use the Wi-Fi and I watch YouTube.com.
I do too all the time, yeah.
I can't watch 5. Even though there's 500 channels, it's like shit I don't want to watch, So
oh yeah,
maybe that TV thing. So it's not like a warm blank. There's one thing I remember with D. Boon, because he was into watching these shows and stuff. I remember MASH and All in the Family. They'd all watch these, so I'd watch them with him and his family. And he loved Johnny Carson. His father was originally from Nebraska, and so I think there was that connection with Johnny Carson, but he loved that show and loved him. When we were kids, a lot of the movies were marketed at World War II generation. So a lot of black and white war movies. All guys killing each other and shit. I mean, there's buttloads in those days. But then I don't remember us getting into that so much. Although there was one movie, it wasn't so much the second war, it was actually before that. In fact, we couldn't tell what the fuck was going on. No, really. The plot it was one of those, some movies were so big, they'd have them on 2 nights.
Oh, yeah.
Tuesday and a Thursday or something. Tuesday, Wednesday or something. But anyway, this was called the Sand Pebbles. It was 1966, Clint Eastwood. So we're not seeing it until 71, 70.
Yeah.
71. It's when I first met him, kind of. I mean, right away, she put me on bass. We started playing right when I met him. She already had him playing guitar because she played guitar as a girl. She just told us she learned Ramblin' Rose. And there was this guy, Roy Mendez Lopez. He lived in his car. This guy, he was incredible with autodidact, teaching himself and building guitars and mandolins and stuff. And he showed D. Boon, especially flamenco and classical stuff, that he really got into it. But that's because of Margie Boon, hit the ma, And then she said every band needed a bass, so I would be on the bass. And, with the arena rock and shit, it was hard to tell what it was because the sound was, and we couldn't really hear it off the records. Some, like Cream, maybe more of the England mixes, John Entwistle or Geezer Butler. I don't know. D. Boon, he, of course, was way into John Fogerty, but then he got into, when I turned him on to Buck Dharma, Blue Oyster Cult, he got way into Buck Dharma, especially with lead guitar. So it's this weird mixture. And then he, rhythm guitar-wise, he started getting into Pete Townsend. So those three, and then when we became part of the movement, we were watching the gigs, he loved, Pat Smear.
Oh, yeah, the Germs. And
it was Germs, Pat Smear, Meat Puppet, Kurt Kirkwood, Doug Robert, The Stains, Greg Ginn, Bob Mould, some more guys like Kurt Kirkwood. He actually did some techniques and stuff. He really, really looked out of the cats. So D. Boon admired. He didn't see it as competition. He was Joe Baiza. He was really interesting that way. Really open. Well, he was artistic. He could draw and stuff too. But another thing we would watch. So the Sand Pebbles, Steve McQueen. We love this movie, and that had like the China kind of Civil War thing going on. It's in the 20s. But mostly we didn't watch that. The movies we really got into was these B-movie, horror movie, and science fiction shit. They'd have these hosts. Now, this TV guy you gave me is for Portland, Oregon. Yep. So, of course, the local stations ain't the same. And so that's different because that's what these things were. And I learned from the Stooges guys and other cats too. They were like, 10, 11 years older than me, but even guys around my age, he'd tell me in these other towns, there'd be these, just like with kids shows, these local kind of. So there was this cat here named Seymour.
Yep.
He's originally St. Louis, and he played this cat, Seymour, and for a while it was called Fright Night, and one was Creature Feature and
Chiller Theater, and yeah.
So you know what I'm talking about, okay?
Yeah, it's Vampira was in LA in the 50s, but then Seymour sort of replaced her in the 60s. I think it was KTLA used to do the horror movies at the time.
KTLA, yeah, that was Channel 5, I think. Gene Autry, Channel 11. There was 13. I think we had 4 locals. KCOP was 13. 9, maybe 9 and 5 were somehow connected. And then there was 11, KTTV, and that's now Fox. There was no Fox in them days.
Yeah, that didn't start till 87.
Yeah, we're talking 1970.
Yeah.
But there was 4 local, and then you had these UHF things. And some of those were kind of local. Some of them was like this PBS kind of. I don't think there was a PBS yet, but it was some kind of like.
It was Wild West on those.
Without that name,
yeah.
Difference between a tissue and Kleenex, right? One's a fucking brand. So it was this kind of thing, that was not funded so much with commercials.
Yeah.
And but they didn't broadcast it as much too. They'd only be on a few hours of thing, and then there was the other languages, and they were on the UHF things. But that's why I'm saying it was kind of a limited thing.
One of the big things about I always talk about in this show, especially those of us that grew up pre-millennium, is we have this shared experience. Exactly what you were saying, where it was like even if it was stuff you didn't necessarily like, you knew about it, and you could probably talk with someone about it, even if you hated it.
I like Elvira so much, and I think that borrowed stuff from
Vampira, yeah,
and also, but then as far as the shtick, is the jokes and making fun, he'd come into the thing. a lot of it was from this guy, Seymour. And I think he helped her at first, too.
Yeah, that's why I think it was KTLA.
Okay, this is the guy who played Seymour. And D. Boon, like I said, he was an artist, too, so visual. So he made a painting of this guy, a portrait of his face. And it's the first time he got the idea from the back of the Tyranny Mutation album by Blue Oyster Cult. But they got their name, it said E. Bloom, stun guitar. And like, what the fuck is stun guitar? And like I said, Buck B. Dharma was a big influence. So it's the first time he uses the name D. Boon. He don't put Dennis. He puts Dennis Boon, and he signs this painting of this guy,
Wow.
Seymour. Now, but you didn't have this choices for me because this is
it's an Oregon one that I had.
so they probably had their own trip. There's a guy, the Chicago one is kind of national now.
Svenghouli.
Yeah, right. But see, I think everybody had these kind of things going. And so me and D. Boon, I remember, was into this Seymour guy.
Yeah, we had one called Feep here that was basically a light bulb that was supposed to be an alien. But then Paul Thomas Anderson, the director, his dad, Ernie Anderson, was Ghoulardi in Cleveland.
I heard about Ghoulardi from John Petkovich.
Yeah.
The Cobra Verde guy told me about that.
So it was very local. And then Chris and Kirk, they had a kids show when I talked to Chris called Wallace and Ladmo that they loved. It was like this local Arizona kids show, but it was on for like 45 years. It only ended a few years ago, and they used to watch it as kids. So we kind of lost that local thing.
I met Gibby, the Butthole Singers, Pop.
Oh, he was a kids host, right?
Yeah, something, Mr. Peppermint or something. He was also a reporter for UPI. He told me he was at the Dealey Plaza when that assassination thing. He said he saw Lee Harvey Oswald right in the face.
Whoa.
The depository. That's what he told me. The last tour at Firehose did was opening for Butthole. It was some fairground thing in Dallas. And his daddy was there. And I didn't learn that much about the Mr. Peppermint thing.
No, when you were at the assassination, Mr. Peppermint's going to be second.
That kid shit, I was really into the 50s Gumby.
Yes, I still love it.
Yeah, those things, when they're in the toy store and shit.
It's so weird. It's just like the most surreal, bizarre thing. As a kid, you're like, what is this?
I got to see him do a talk. He played his first one, which was just some kind of like riff on evolution with this clay that's doing the whole history of the way the universe and everything was formed and where it's going. And then he did Q&A, and he seemed like a very sensitive guy. And so somebody asked him questions to try to embarrass him and shit. It was the most weird ass thing.
This is Art Clokey, right? The guy, yeah.
I mean, it was Art Clokey was talking. Yeah, he seemed like really gentle. And this guy was like, hey, is that pokey thing, kind of double talk for you really being, liking guys or some shit like this? Yeah, the worst. And he starts laughing and shit, and everybody's like, you motherfucker, what the fuck are you?
I'm sure he heard that all the time,
It was really strange. It was like the tumbleweeds were on. This guy's like cracking himself up. Yeah, you are. Cleared up that mystery. You are that big fucking idiot. You
cracked the case, buddy.
Remember one thing. This is later stuff. I'm more the Toy Store 50s, but later on in the 60s, he had some new characters he brought in, and he said they were after these kind of personalities, like Prickly and Gooey. Yeah.
Prickle was the dinosaur, and Goo was the girl.
They had names, but it was also their kind of personality, some kind of thing, Alan Watts kind of stuff. Greg Ginn told me he listened to a lot of Alan Watts.
That makes sense.
A trippy thing. So, of course, the choices are there. So
yeah, let's go. Yeah, we'll go through. Before we jump to Saturday, The Prisoner is one of my favorite shows, and you were saying that you love The Prisoner.
It's made during 67, 68. That's when it comes out in England and stuff. And I think the next year, only 17 episodes. Yeah, I saw it. Navy housing means it's the year before 70 or 2 years. So there was one episode, Living in Harmony, they wouldn't allow shown here because he won't put on the gun or some shit.
McGoohan's amazing. Like that guy, you know, I bring him up on the show a lot because, and actually I talked to Alex Cox and who did Repo Man.
I read his book.
It's great.
That's a lot. I've read a lot of books on Prisoner, but the most latest is the one I am. You know, he's got not kind of blacked out. I am a number, looks like. But he goes through every episode with his own theory. He even has his own order. He thinks it be in.
Which is weird that it works. Like you can watch that show in different orders and it totally works.
Well, I don't think Patrick McGoohan wanted to do 17. It's that boss of this production company. He wanted to syndicate it. So I think he knew how he wanted it to start. There's certain logics you can see. You can see, for me, I can feel core ones. And then I can see just like filler kind of riffing on a thing. One, I think they have just the double in it because he's in SoCal for Ice Station Zebra. Terrible fucking lame movie.
Yeah. And McGoohan, one of the only actors who told him to go fuck himself when they offered him James Bond.
Big thing about him in that show, Prisoners, him maybe not doing a James Bond, but something like that where he had success was Danger Man. He wanted to quit. They didn't want him to quit.
And that's when he got offered Bond because he was doing Danger Man and he was like, go fuck yourself, I'm doing The Prisoner. Which is such a fuck you.
Prisoner's his own kind of thing. But he just only wanted to do 7 shows. He didn't want to do this. That was the problem with Danger Man, one of the problems. It was getting formula. Like this formula thing.
Yeah, you only have so many sources.
Well, to me, that is the whole bottom line of this Fallout 17th episode, where it just starts over again because that's the way those kind of shows are. Like majority of these shows you gave me to choose from, they come up with a formula and then they just flog that motherfucker. Some they can do it 19 years like Gunsmoke. Maybe it's more than 19. It was long. Or some are like Addams Family. I don't even think they make 2
Only
seasons.
2, yeah. Not even full 2. And are all great. Like, there's no bad episodes of that show.
At this. What's the fucking happen, really fucking go-to one seasoner? Honeymooners. It's one season.
You're right.
All that the butt rape of the Flintstone thing. I mean, one season.
In 4 decades, it was iconic.
But in a way, that's the canon, you know. Or you end up with the filler and shit. Yeah, you're making it with the double because you're doing some lame ass other thing for money. Ice Station Zebra, what a piece of shit that is. Terrible fucking thing. Instead of like Bob Hoyts to the bottom of the sea, you know, it's like just the worst. Remember that show? Well, they all use the same kind of sound stages, whatever. Thing in the desert here, Pioneer Town, you know, musicians by Yucca Valley and Joshua Tree. But we're going to build this town to film Westerns in and shit. Yeah, about a couple of years of that, and every movie looks the fucking same.
They're like, this feels so comfortable. It's so familiar.
What about foyers and houses, right? Big thing with staircases. Yeah, I mean, round thing. Yeah, it's the same thing. And like
this town never changes. So this time June 13th, 1970, it's the summer 1970. The first thing you picked here is F Troop.
I thought that, you know, it's all I think the writers is that Mel Brooks kind of shit and Buck Henry. Those kind of things. It's that kind of yuck, you know, which is like vaudeville, Marx Brothers.
Very burlesque.
So it's just sort of like the Green Acre thing, too. That's the way the fucking those shows are, you know. So that's why I got in, because it was just so, you know. And then also the non-con, the idea of the chief.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really into McHale's Navy because that was my pop was in the Navy. You call a chief, Army you'd call him a sergeant. So it's just non-com, and they're running the guys. The officers, you know, it's politics between themselves and shit, and wives running the right parties. The guys running the men are actually the non-coms, and so if you notice in F Troop, who's like Ernest Borgnine in it. But then after him, I saw him in some horror movie where he's getting drunk all the time. It's funny. But he's like the operator.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
shit.
yeah.
So, I grew up Navy housing, so maybe there's some. But I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't really that much into war movies except that Sand Pebbles. Then I read the book, Helping the Portal for Pyro guys, middle 90s. And book is like, why? And it was written by a machinist mate like my pop, a little before. But same trip, humanity writes about it. But Jackie Gleason, he was, I don't know, there's something about, I could tell that the alcohol was a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think all the skits. I think he's even drunk doing this shit. Greer's is the F Troop thing where, let's have the most stupid motherfucker. And then that goes for the city guy. He's a fucking idiot too. Yeah.
Well, he's one of my favorite angry guys on TV because like he was a war hero too. He was a Navy guy. He saved like a whole, in real life, Eddie Albert saved like a whole battalion of people on a boat, but he went from 0 to pissed off on that show.
Eddie Arnold was a country singer and I used to always their name up. A lot of Hollywood was in the war, believe it or not. And then I picked wrestling. And I didn't know what the wrestling was like in Portland over there. But over here, it wasn't like what it turned to do in the 80s and stuff. It was way more low key. And it was high school gyms and shit.
Yeah.
And a little after this, it was starting to get Latin. Guys like
Luchadors.
Yeah.
Blue Demon and El Santo and all that stuff.
Bobo Brazil. But so I was just thinking, another like sister, they share the channels in the same kind of like hustle was roller derby.
Yes.
Too, with we Los Angeles had T-Birds and we'd always be Texas Bombers and shit, against them. And so that was a big, one of those, I don't know if they had it in Portland. For Sunday, I remember I'd watch TV with the Boons on Sundays a lot. And I remember Wild Kingdom.
Yeah.
These nature stuff. Yeah, they liked watching that. I watched it with them. And then Ed Sullivan.
Still on by 1970, which is really almost the end of them.
Yeah, and this has got like this episode has like this Italian kind of crooner singer.
Sergio
Fraccia, yeah, it's, but all kinds of jugglers and all
the Shondells, Tommy James and the Shondells.
Tommy James and the Shondells. Vino recorded for Roulette. Actually, he wrote a book about that shit and then made a musical. There's a fucking musical about him being on Roulette Records. This label was run by gangsters, but they let him record anything because they knew nothing about music. But he claims, this thing. Mission Impossible. This was in, I think, the last year or something.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, I always liked that show because you had to figure out something. Something always fucked up the perfect plan, but then it would still work out. And the dude who's really thinks he's got it together is like standing there like, what the fuck?
This is a good one. Leonard Nimoy's in this one. John Vernon. So it's a pretty good one.
Guys who come in and out. Leonard Nimoy. Yeah, for a while, the Barbara Baines.
Yep.
And Martin Landau. Right, they were married. The main guy was Peter Phelps, which was the brother, in fact, of the Gunsmoke guy,
yep.
James Arness. He changed his name to mother's name so wouldn't know they were brothers.
The Charlie Sheen thing.
Right, trying to keep from telling Bobby Mitchum where the money is by stuffing a sock in his mouth the night of the hunter.
I love
Shelley Winter.
Robert Mitchum's my favorite.
Lawton.
Yeah, Charles Lawton.
Mr. Fish. The only movie he directed. Okay, on Monday, Dick Van Dyke. My mother loved Mary Tyler Moore. Always had to watch that shit. Yeah, she was, I don't know, she married to him?
Yeah, she played his wife on the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Falling down all the time. But the lady, what amazed me about that show was working in the office with Dick Van Dyke was like Maury Amsterdam.
Yeah, Rosemarie.
Yeah, but Rosemarie looked and talked exactly like D. Boone's mom,
Oh, wow.
Margie Boone.
Wow.
So more than the Mary Tyler Moore, my mom even cut her hair like that and shit. Was the Margie Boon. Yeah, she was on Hollywood Squares sometimes too. Then sometimes I would watch this My Favorite Martian. I don't know why, except no, I'm born in 1957, so there's this thing with the fucking space race. So I was interested in space stuff, but this was like this stupid comedy.
Yeah.
But this it was terrible.
It really
like
is
the
bad.
little talking horse and yeah. Okay, the uncle's got something to hide. Actually, that was a common theme. It wasn't being a Martian, but yeah,
Yep.
Uncle Bob Touch. Or whatever the fuck. But for some reason, sometimes I would watch. It's not all the time. But was Bill Bixby the other guy?
Yep. Bill Bixby was the other guy. Yep.
Because I noticed Eddie's father was listed under there too. And
Yeah. Well, you must have known Brandon.
yeah, Brandon turned into a singer of one of them Nardcore bands.
Yeah.
Repute or Stalag 13 or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
And then he was singing with the Dead Kennedys.
Oh, yeah. But he actually had a band, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think of the name of it now, but yeah.
Repute or Stalag 13.
Yeah, it was one of them.
On Mystic Records, Doug Mooney's thing. Okay. And then Laugh It. D&D Boon like Laugh It. A lot of it, we didn't know what the fuck was going on, why we were laughing. But then other things we did. And, some of the recurring guys like, very interesting, playing the Nazis and shit. We used to listen a lot to fucking Cheech and Chong records. So, and also George Carlin. I mean, when I first met D. Boon, I thought he made up all these bits and they were actually George Carlin things. Yeah, I thought he was the smartest dude in the world. And then he plays me this cassette. He would tape shit right off the TV with a cassette. And it's got his bits there. It was like, you didn't make up any of this shit.
He had good taste, though.
I thought, also Mad Magazine was heavy on us.
Yeah.
We would into cassette machine, just do like radio play versions of these, satires on shows and shit. I don't know what, the original thing wasn't there until Movement. It was about copying songs, copying, bits in the Mad, him biting those comedians.
Mad was huge for me because there were shows I never watched, but I only knew through Mad Magazine parodies.
Yeah. Well, we knew it and we got into this kind of thing, it's a lot, especially the early, of the Movement was a lot of satire and shit and irony. And then I go to a Tuesday with Star Trek. Now this is I think it's already in syndication because Channel 12, I bet you, is a local for them. So that show only ran 3 years, but I think by 68 or 69, it's over.
Yeah. And a show that didn't find its audience till later. Like people who liked it really liked it.
It started to, because look, it's already in syndication now. Maybe. I can't remember exactly, but the 70s had Star Trek movies.
Yeah. 78, I think, was the first one.
Okay, 78. I never saw any of them, but they had movies, Star Trek movies. And then they started, after the movies, they started having shows again, series.
Yeah, Next Generation started 85, I think.
Yeah, there was a bald captain.
Yep. Picard.
Yeah, Picard, right? Well, that's his character's name, right? But the movies actually have fucking Shatner in them. And
oh, yeah. Nimoy directed 2 of them, I think.
see, I only like kind of the characters. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know who directed. I didn't see any of them. It was I didn't really like. But what I liked was, maybe it was the characters, Scotty, or
the '60s show had some kind of magic to it too, because it's more like Wagon Train, and it has that '60s vibe to it that's missing in the other stuff.
Yeah, well, the plots are just ridiculous things, whatever in the wardrobe that Paramount ain't using. It's the interactions, character things. I'm used to the fucking war movies. They got all the shit between the guys. Combat, you got the Cajun guy, you got the Brooklyn guy.
Cross section of humanity there.
Or whatever demographic they're trying to milk. 40-year-old Potsy. I mean, some of that shit's ridiculous. remember when that shit came out, my pop said, those were not fucking happy days. It was 1957 when I was born. And this fucking airbrushing this shit, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, back to this. Men of Science and Advocates. My pop got me this fucking subscription to Scientific American. Again, I think it's something to do with the space race, but there was something else. When I was a boy, we had to live, because I live in Virginia twice. I'm born there, and we go back to live there before I come live in Pedro, but there's a part where General Electric has got a nuke plant in Schenectady. Well, I say roof. For a year and a half I'm there while he's getting trained on this shit. And my mom gets sold this door-to-door salesman shit, World Book.
Oh, yeah, encyclopedias.
So now the link is the letter. No hyperlinks, you know, but they're organized by the letter. But
right.
Yeah, that's how I got into like kind of the only kind of nonfiction I ever read was this encyclopedia shit. So it just got me curious about shit. So shit like Advocates, I think they're talking about Israeli Arab thing on this issue. And I would watch this shit, even though not like the Sand Pebbles movies, not really understanding what's going on. I could tell there's some and then there would be things though, like I remember there's a chow with these fucking bosses and the minister of the, whatever it's called, missionary thing. You know?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, they're having a chat and they ask opinion about politics or something. It's Clint Eastwood. Jack Nicholson's, who am I thinking of? Steve McQueen.
Oh, yeah.
Steve McQueen. Look, politics is just look-see for the officers.
Yeah, it's about Israeli and Middle East, and then the science show is about volcanoes.
Yeah, but I could tell that there was some stuff that was very serious, you know, because at the same time, there's the civil rights and anti-war marches, free speech and this kind of stuff. And so, you know, I'm only a boy and stuff, but they're hitting me sort of like this program stuff coming out of the studio. So that's where stuff like Man of Science or Advocates, where they're just talking about shit out of a book or trying to talk about current events. Yeah, I would watch some of this stuff, you know, and not be able to figure out so well. And then Honeymooners. Yeah. Yeah, because I love this show. I don't know why, but it just spoke to me. Maybe my mom's people from Italy. My mom hollered a lot, man, and shit. So this idea of people, family life being a bunch of yelling. Yeah. And also it's sort of like Navy housing with the Chiefs, because they yell at dudes, you know, basically. My pop not as much, you know, but yeah, they think about enlisted men. They're not really from a military tradition, you know, they're usually trying to escape some fucking hell. Yeah. It's a trippy dynamic, that whole thing.
But it's a real blue collar show.
Well, it just spoke to me in some fucking weird way. This loud, rough, crude way of people dealing with each other, man. I mean, it's like, and plus maybe he's drinking then for sure. In the Jackie Gleason one, well, all the skits, this guy's all drunk ass till he starts singing. There's one about the guy as a bartender, another one a guy who can't walk straight. You know, it's all this Baracho shit.
He was obsessed with UFOs, and he claimed that Nixon showed him photos of alien bodies. Gleason did.
Maybe. I remember my pop telling me, but these fish story things about Area 51 and Hangar 14 and all these things. He'd come home from tours. He had these 8-9 month tours in Vietnam and come and then drive around for 2 or 3 days, just spiel with me for 8 or 9 hours. And these stories he'd be getting around the boats. This is in the late 60s. And I heard about all that kind of stuff.
Oh, wow. Wow.
A bunch of things. A Wednesday, music. Sometimes I would hear music on TV. Mm-hmm. Now, these shows weren't on yet, but a couple years later, early 70s, was In Concert on ABC, Midnight Special, NBC. No, ABC was in concert.
Yeah, Midnight Special was NBC, I think.
And then Don Kirshner was on a local affiliate, might have been Channel 9. And they used to film them where we saw T-Rex at the Long Beach Auditorium. In the back stage had two sides, smaller, bigger, and they would film these things. But anyway, this one here, it was called Net Jazz, the show, but it was B.B. King. And I saw this, B.B. King playing. Now, this next one is Johnny Cash, but it's way different.
Yeah.
It's a gig. This is like this thing that was big in the 70s. And in fact, the next one, same kind of thing. It was the era of this thing called the variety shows. So they'd have this star, and then they'd do all these skits, have some guests on, along with the core cast, then sing some songs. But it wasn't like a gig. It wasn't like a concert like B.B. King. So that's what Johnny Cash is on, and you can see his guests and stuff. And then the next night, same thing with Tom Jones and Dean Martin. But these guys were powerful men for me, even though it's all like fucking cornball-ass variety show format. No, because Donnie Marie had one.
Yeah.
Sonny and Cher had one fucking... And even some guys like Mac Davis.
Oh, yeah. Paul Lind.
Well, Paul Lind deserved one. Davis, I mean...
Glenn Campbell. Glenn Campbell replaced the Smothers Brothers show with his variety show.
Yeah, but I would say Glenn Campbell, I don't know who picks these things. I don't know how long it lasted. I think the Donnie Marie one lasted probably one of the longest.
Yeah, sadly.
Carol Burnett had a long one.
Yeah.
But then she didn't come in just from some pop thing either, which is kind of... Dean Martin was making movies. Then he had a singing career, and then he had his own TV show. But there's a Judy Garland show in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of drinking on TV.
Or pills.
Yeah. That Christmas episode, I rewatch it every couple of years, and it's like, woof.
And so by the 70s, I mean, they're a little more slick and stuff, but man, they are really kind of formulaic.
Oh, yeah. Even that Johnny Cash one.
Yeah, he might be pilled up and shit, but I don't know. There's something about those, especially when I'm looking at the other shows, because the music is like what you would be hearing. Well, you would hear some rock and roll out of AM radio, but a lot of this was totally AM radio stuff.
Yeah. That AM Gold kind of thing. Although, like, Cash on his show that night, he's got Jerry Lee Lewis on doing Great Balls of Fire. And then Cash plays Cocaine Blues, which actually surprised me that he's playing that on his variety show in 1970.
No, he did a lot of shows like that. You could tell the people. You've seen the one where Joni Mitchell is his guest?
Yes. Or have you ever seen the one with the episode of Lawrence Welk where they do One Toke Over the Line?
Yeah. Jesus. But what amazed me was the personas.
Yeah.
Because the format is like, oh, it's so fucking lame ass and shit. But I just love the personas. I love the persons they are.
Because you didn't get to see musical acts be themselves on TV. Like it was, you'd see them perform maybe an interview, but it was kind of cool to see them like, hey, I'm Johnny, like come out and be themselves on a show was unusual.
Yeah, kind of themselves.
Sort of themselves.
Still,
yeah.
Yeah, the variety host.
Right.
And then there was another choice, too, where Orson Welles was a guest host. There's these people that are bigger than the gig that they got, definitely.
Yeah, Orson Welles is hosting for Mike Douglas all week, I think.
Yeah, there's a movie at the end that I watched, 2 Weeks in Another Town. And this is fucking a heavy movie, man. I remember seeing this. Again, it was hard to understand, but like, yeah, these directors out of their minds. And it's Kirk Douglas, who lived a long time, too. Yep. And Edward G. Robinson, which was one of my all-time favorite actors, period. I just love his stuff.
I've never seen this movie. Is it a gangster movie?
No. It's like artistic guys going over their fucking heads, out of their minds.
Now I have to watch this.
Yeah. In Rome.
Oh, yeah. And producer John Houseman. 1962.
In the early 60s, it was made. So it's still black and white stuff.
George Hamilton.
George Hamilton's, I think, one of the other. There's three directors.
Oh, wow. I'll have to see this. This looks actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, see, by that time, it's 8 years old, right?
Do you have a favorite TV theme song as a musician?
Well, the Lala Schifrin thing on the fucking Mission Impossible. Also, the bass lick that Carol Kay made up for Wild Wild West.
Yeah, the Carol Kay session TV stuff is just awesome.
Yeah, she, all those guys playing, Hal Blaine, Earl Palmer, the drummers.
I have to watch this now. Oh, Vicente Minnelli directed it.
Well, Vincent Minnelli made the movie. He's the director. I think Kirk Douglas had success with Spartacus.
He could do something a little more interesting or had a little more choices in what he could do.
What do you call it? Control?
He had a little more juice, kind of, to pick projects.
Yeah, it's the reason why, Stanley Kubrick never did another, 2 directors.
Oh, yeah.
Not enough control.
And he was the ultimate control freak for a director, for sure.
Well, yeah, I think part of that is him being a cameraman. He was, as a teenager, he did pictures for Look magazine. So he was really involved with the camera stuff.
Yeah, this does sound heavy.
Yeah, and especially for being a boy. Again, this is kind of hard for me to understand, but in a way, pretty insane. So, it's bizarre. All the early 60s, they're strange,
Yeah.
They're going kind of weird, kind of realism kind of thing. There's one of my favorite movies from this period is Night of the Iguana with Ava Gardner.
Yeah.
Really good. What's that called? Defrocked?
Yes, Defrocked. The priest is Defrocked, yeah.
Richard Burt. He's on this fucking bus with these Ava Gardner's got these whole helper guys who help him at this resort. I think Tennessee Williams wrote the thing. That's really good. I mean, there's a trippy jazz movie about early 60s with Paul Newman as a trombone man. Sidney Poitier is in it. Something in Paris.
Oh, yeah.
There's something about these early 60s things that are trippy. They're fucking trippy. Didn't last through the 60s. The terrible, all these ensemble war things like Longest Day and shit. But then the end of the 60s, Easy Rider. So, so early 60s, late 60s, that part is really kind of good, I think. Interesting. So that's how I end that week.
That's not a bad end. A little heavy, but not a bad end. Is there anything you watch now? Are there any shows that you can't miss or any comfort shows?
There's a website called Daily Motion. So sometimes, I remember there's a Outer Limits.
Yeah.
With this hat, they get a guy from the future. And he's been bred to be a soldier and shit.
Yep.
And they try to get him all calm, but some other fucking clown finds out where he is. And of course, that's their whole mission. And he ends up saving this life. But, all I had was a memory for all these years. So I went and used that. Then on this fucking tour I just did with MSSV, Halloween was in Houston. And this pad we were playing, it's called the Smile Happy Place, is crazy, downtown Houston, eastern part. And there was a hat, a mannequin head with a fucking little pointy hat and a little mask. And I thought, man, I got because I always wanted to do costume for Halloween.
Yeah, it's Halloween.
It's the only day all year where we admit we wear fucking costume. But anyway, this, again, it turned me on to an old, maybe it was a Twilight Zone. But Bill Mummy, before he's on Lost in Space, he's got some fucking mind reading shit.
Yeah, It's a Good Life, that episode is called.
I think that's what it's called. And this one guy stands up to him and he puts him in the fucking cornfield.
Because I'm a Jack in the Box.
Yeah, he's got the fucking hat on. So I look like I can that. So sometimes I'll do that. There was one too in Outer Limits with the Xanties, with the Z.
Oh, Xanty Misfits, yeah.
Faces. God gets killed, but they knew they could get him killed by using U.S. people to murder all these guys.
Soldier, the one you were talking about, Harlan Ellison wrote.
That's the one. Harlan Ellison wrote the script.
And he sued James Cameron for ripping it off for Terminator.
Kind of. See, Terminator, though, that's a robot.
They settled out of court.
Yeah, but Soldier ain't a robot. Those guys born in some kind of incubators and shit. They're still organic. They're not machines.
Yeah, there's two Outer Limits that Harlan Ellison wrote. One's called Demon with a Glass Hand. That's a robot. And then the other one's Soldier. And he basically said they took them both.
Yeah, that one got all the human race on a some kind of medium.
It's like a hand USB, but 40 years before USBs were a thing.
He's got some identities, everybody on the hand.
Yeah, those are timeless. I rewatch those often. I mean, they're always great.
They kind of are like each other, but all that science fiction, and I read all kinds of that shit because, again, it was kind of the space time, but space race, the Soviets, U.S. get to the moon. But on the other thing, these other things trip me out. They were psychological stories like Sand Pebbles, like 2 Weeks in Another Town. They weren't these formulaic, simple things. They were a lot of psychological things. And so even though I couldn't figure them out, they were things that made me get into pondering mode. So that's why I look at them as a very positive opportunity, experiences that ended up being opportunities.
Yeah, they managed to take sort of a cliche genre like a Western or a war thing, and because you can't figure it out right away, it does make you really have to pay more attention and think about it more and be like, why don't I understand this? And yeah, it really is kind of an expanding sort of inadvertent education.
Hollywood loves movies about Hollywood.
Of course. People like to talk about themselves, and Hollywood's no different.
Hollywood loves it. So that's my week of program. And like since then, no, I don't watch any shows like this, things of the Netflix and these.
Yeah.
I just can't watch these things. The miniature series and stuff. No,
yeah.
I just can't.
You're not alone. You're not alone.
Oh, why? They just don't. I remember. This is years ago, but there was one about Vikings. My sister got me to watch a little bit of it. But then after a while, it just seemed like another fucking soap.
Yeah, basically, that's what everything ends up being eventually.
Well, there's some of these kind of host shows still going that I watch. We talked about Svenghouli, right? This guy's very smart and stuff, but man, some of the routines want to puke. What I'm kind of more copacetic with is these cats out of Buffalo. They got Offbeat TV. Have you ever seen that stuff?
No. Do they have a YouTube channel?
Oh, yeah. First off, they got a website, and then that's got links to, but they're going to come on today at 7 o'clock. Retro TV, I can get it through the internet, Retro TV, and then I can mirror onto this TV through the laptop.
Oh, nice.
Anyway, that's the way I do. I just can't handle the shit where these channels have broadcastings. That's from way years ago. I just am not used to that kind of way. It's sort of like the Seymour thing.
It looks cool. Yeah, they're showing a bunch of Hammer horror movies. Yeah, that's right up my alley. I'm going to check it out.
Screaming Starts. I think that's the one that's on today. And
that's perfect.
From one of the public libraries in the Buffalo area or something like that. Act like
perfect.
Beatniks and stuff. But that's about as close as I get. The other thing, it's kind of like this thing with the World Book Encyclopedia in a way. Really, think about the YouTube.com. That's basically what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of the things that give me the suggestions, right? The algorithms, I don't pick.
Yeah.
But, every 55 or 85, I'll pick one. And I'll slice up the deck a lot. And I'll have a lot of them, though. I cannot go with the suggests. Fuck.
Yeah. Although my wife and I, we love this YouTube thing that it suggested to us once, and it's literally this kid in like rural Mass who just cleans out beaver dams from culverts. And for whatever weird reason, it's like fascinating to watch.
See, the shit like this, I know. And I think it comes from those encyclopedias, and it's knowledge, right? So it ain't wasted.
Yeah, you're learning.
You're going to use it the other thing where you're just like kind of killing time. Yeah, can't handle it.
No, life's too short.
Yeah, too much to make.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this. As I said, I've wanted to talk to you for a long time. I really appreciate you taking the time to doing it. This is a lot of fun.
But thanks so much for having me aboard.
There you go. That's Watt from Pedro. Love that guy. Buy all his music. Go see him live. You will never be disappointed. I first saw him Live in 1995, he put out a record called Ball Hog or Tugboat. It was his first solo record, and I was 15, went to the Avalon Ballroom in Boston, Mass. I think it was the first show on the tour. That record's great, by the way. You should really, it's sort of an all-star, circa 1995 record. But his backup band on that tour was amazing. I think, and someone will correct me if I'm wrong, it was the Foo Fighters' first live show. They were opening. It was mostly Sunny Day Real Estate and then Pat Smear playing with them. And then his backup band included Dave Grohl on drums, Eddie Vedder on drums. There was 2 drummers. I think Gary Young played with him as well, who did the song Plant Man. Have you ever heard that? You had Pat Smear playing with him. Eddie Vedder did some singing. Evan Dando did some singing. Jay Mascis from Dinosaur Jr. was playing guitar. Just unbelievable supergroup. And that record is great. Anyway, huge fan of his. Hope you are too now. This was a really fun episode for me, and I hope it was for you. And next week we'll have another fun episode. So please sit back, relax, and don't enjoy this week until you're here for a new episode of TV Guidance Counselor.
I Station Zebra, what a piece of shit that is.